To the CCSK Cloud and Cloud Security webinar. If you're live, hello there. If you're not live, then you are seeing this in the recording, and you will find on the left hand side, which is probably more on for you, is over there, some controls that allow you to navigate through the recording and skip back and forth, and you can actually navigate down into the individual chat message. So great to have some questions. A lot of you are really interested in the certification in and of itself, and I appreciate that. It's a sign of understanding cloud security, and to put some weight under that to help you and your boss and whoever to focus on CCSK. I'm going to explain a bit more about why cloud and cloud security is actually relevant, because I still see people who are kind of in denial around cloud. And if that's your boss, you have a hard time. Now, some are in denial on the other side of the spectrum, saying cloud is going to solve all problems, which is not true either. Right. So let's see if we can get to the next screen. And what I'm going to talk to you about is the unavoidability of cloud. And the cloud is here to stay. That's the number one point I'm going to make. And one way of looking at that is to imagine that we would have 10 times the amount of computers and servers and software from what we have today. Think about that. Let that sink in for a second. Suppose we have 10 times the amount of kit and gear. So if you have 1,000 servers right now, we'll have 10,000 servers. If you have 10 million lines of code operational, we're going to have 100 million lines of code. Now, how are we going to run that? How much staff does that take to manage? Is that going to take another 10 times the amount of staff that we have? I find that quite unlikely, because we don't have that many people, and we're not going to have that many people who are into IT. On the other hand, you might say, well, IT is part of the business now, and we can no longer afford to just have only IT worry about that. And in that sense, we might have 10 times the amount of people. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. What this leads to is that we are splitting up the delivery of IT into a supply chain of independent companies. And this is one supply chain model that you can apply to cloud, where on the right hand side we have our consumers, people like you and me and whatever, and they are using a ton of SaaS applications, and maybe some that they write themselves, and that is all run by some kind of infrastructure service provider. Now, if you're not familiar with those terms, then just drop me a line in the chat, and I'll explain it in a bit more detail. The idea is really, well, actually this is a simple idea. Let's make a more realistic model of the cloud, where you have hundreds of SaaS solutions, dozens of platforms providers, and it's all hosted on Amazon, or, well, that's just kidding. There are other providers as well. And this supply chain idea is a very effective way of doing specialization of labor and making our work more efficient. This is the way that the automobile supply chain works as well. Car manufacturers no longer make everything in the car. They only make like 20% of the car. And the iPhone, I mean, if you look at an iPhone, if you have one, look at the small print on the back. It says, well, it's made in China and designed in California. If you are interested in more detail in this story, you can select some of the links below. Why cloud computing is changing your job and your IT team. That's a YouTube presentation of 70 minutes that dives deeper into this. And there are a couple of other YouTube movies there as well that shed some light on this point. But we're not going to go back to doing all our IT in-house. It is just way too complicated. And specialized companies are doing a much better job at delivering IT than we do ourselves. The exception, of course, being when you have something that is so truly unique to your company that you're the only one who's doing that. In which case, you are actually a cloud provider yourself, but you are focusing on the core things that are what distinguish you from other companies, and you let all the heavy lifting of infrastructure to somebody else. Your average bank these days is highly dependent on its mobile banking application, and they really create that themselves. Okay, uh, once again, the cloud is here to stay, and it's not just about existing stuff. The cloud business case really is about productivity of people, of system admins, of software developers, of people who are creating stuff with cloud. It is about faster delivery and time to market. And this is not just, we're 10xing things here. I mean, if you look at DevOps, which truly is the revolution that is enabled by cloud thinking, even though you might want to do that in your own existing data center without calling it cloud. Actually, DevOps is kind of essentially dependent on cloud. What you're trying to do is recreate production environments in an automatic fashion, and that requires all cloud characteristics. An example is big data, where the only feasible way to do big data is to share resources, because you can't afford to have that all yourself and only use it every now and then when you run your queries. So what we see here is that cloud as a development, and it's not a technology, it's a development, enables new things with IT. And those newer things make the current things more efficient, the efficiency of people, but it also allows companies to do ridiculously faster delivery and time to market of new features. Changing from once every month a new feature to once every minute almost. And I'm just reading the DevOps handbook again, and that really explains that very well. And that is the reason why companies want cloud, period. Now, there are also risks associated with that. We'll get back to that. And this picture really tries to explain to you, or to try to get your mind around the idea of agility, like fast moving, fast turning. That's what it's all about. That's cloud in my mind. Now, a little bit about me. I am one of the world's most experienced independent cloud trainers. I've delivered that cloud training to thousands of students, and some 10,000 people have bought some of my courses. I am a certified trainer for the Cloud Security Alliance's CCSK. As they say, I'm one of the top 3 trainers in the world. I'm pushing more out than, let's say, most other people. I'm having now about 90 courses. I started doing this when I wrote Cloud Adoption Essentials in 2010. It's amazing, isn't it? It's like 9 years ago. Then I developed that into Professional Cloud Technology Associate, CompTIA, and then it was also developed into CompTIA Cloud Essentials, and a couple of other things that I worked on, but mainly it's CCSK that I do. In my professional career, I worked at the university, I worked at an IT services provider, I worked at consulting organizations, and I picked up a lot of things around IT and management of IT that really make that all come together in cloud. That's the big point, really. And finally, I am a board member of the Dutch Cloud Security Alliance chapter. So let's get back to you for a second. I've just talked about myself a bit. Now I want to know a little bit more about you. I'm going to turn off the broadcast for a second. So I want you to fill in these two polls. One is about your role, and the other is about your company. And there's no single best answer. You just pick the ones that you feel most comfortable with. And we need some more people to do this. Now we're getting more people. Right. Oh, no salespeople in here. No software developers. Couple of service managers. Platform consumers. Oh, no, that's SaaS consumers. It's flipping up and down a bit. Once again, the company, your company, you could tick off multiple things. And let's see, one infrastructure provider. How cool would that be? Yep. Some people are giving in tons of answers here. Yeah, cool. So, and service managers, quite a few service managers. Interesting. Like that. Good. So, what we see here is so service managers, architects, consultants, solution consultants, risk managers, and then a lot of infrastructure consumer, past consumer, SaaS consumers, those kind of the consumers are outnumbering the providers. That's the biggest takeaway here. But still, I'm interested in hearing both perspectives. Now let's just for the fun of it dive into a quiz on your cloud knowledge, and these are questions that I have taken from my CCSK training, just to give you perspective. The idea is that I put up a question, and you'll just answer which one is the best answer in your opinion, and then I'll give you some feedback on that, and I'll shut up for a couple of seconds. Okay, and how many? As a few people are not answering, but okay, I know who you are.